For me, a shop tour is a time capsule. It shows exactly where my shop was at a particular time. In this video, I'm going to show you the upgrades that I've made since my last video, but as well show you some of the things I'm going to change over the next year or so. Shop is a 2-car garage that's 22 feet by 24 feet. And since we've lived in this house, we really haven't actually parked in the garage, even though winter takes about 8 months out of the year. But this has been a space that has evolved so much over the years. At one period in time, you almost couldn't move around in here, but with how we've laid things out and how things have changed over the years, we've gotten more and more organized. Generally, we've just been smart about how we're storing everything, so we have more room for activities.
So many aerobics in here, so many activities. Two-step class. It's making my head spin how many activities we can do.
For sure, one of the more notable pieces in the shop is the miter saw station. This was the first shop project that I actually posted to YouTube. And the great thing about this miter saw station is it has storage for all my sustainers. It has built-in dust collection for both the miter saw and the built-in router table. And at the very end, tucked away here, is the first flip top that I'll show you, which houses our drill press. Above, we have lots of storage. The great thing about this garage is the back third actually goes up higher than the rest of the garage. So it gives us the ability to go a little bit higher with storage, and there's lots of things that we've been able to just tuck away up here. Voiceover Chris hopping in here, and before we move away from this corner, you probably noticed that the miter saw has changed colors recently, and this is totally my fault. Last summer when I was working on our motorhome, I had the brilliant idea to bring the generator into the garage and open the oil valve while the motor was running on the generator. Now, as you can see here, it threw oil everywhere. So the entire miter saw station, the miter saw, and the wall behind it were covered and are covered in oil that I couldn't get rid of. So Erin's taken the time just to paint all the drawer faces as well as the cabinet doors just to cover up all the oil staining. And when she was done painting everything, she did put on several coats of the Halcyon Clear from Total Boat. And I love the way the miter saw now matches the rest of the shop furniture. Moving just to the side of where the miter saw is my modern hand tool workbench. This is a bit of a hybrid. As you can probably see, it has my planer built in. This works actually really well as a nice counterweight, but this is a DW 735 DeWalt planer, and the great thing about this planer is it tucks away perfectly, and it's actually motorized. So all I have to do is open up the middle section and then activate the winch, which raises up the planer from the center of the workbench. In the description, there will be a playlist for all the videos of all the different shop projects that I've built over the years. Being a one-person shop, it's really convenient to have the planer set up in this way. This DW 735 weighs about 90 pounds, so having it tucked away in this bench and easily being able to just plug in my dust collection makes life so much easier. The workbench also has incorporated dog holes at the far end and T-track throughout. One of my favorite features about this, and this was a total afterthought, is I built in a hidden drawer into the end of the workbench that just houses all of the hold downs and everything that you would typically use with the T-track. And this just fits in so perfectly, and until today my wife didn't even know that that was there. My hand tools are something that I love having on display, and I've changed this wall slightly over the past year. Previously, I did have my 2 air nailers hanging on this wall, but there was really no point to have them there. So all I did was move them down a little bit, and I was able to incorporate some of the chisels that I had stuck in the drawers that I really would prefer to have up on the wall, where they're a little bit safer, but as well, they look a little bit cooler on the wall. In the previous video, I did talk about replacing these cabinets. One of the things was this drawer, which is broken, and it's still broken, but I realized that if you just turn it the right way, it looks like it's okay. Now, eventually we will put new cabinets here, but really it's not in the budget right now. Several other things that we want to take care of before moving on to rebuilding these cabinets. Now, unfortunately, my clamp storage hasn't improved yet. I actually need to pare down on a lot of the clamps that I have before I can do anything with this. I'm really happy with all the Rockler and Bessie clamps that I have, but there's some other clamps that I've bought over the years that really need to go. So this is a really cool feature that we added over the past year, and this is the fold down lathe stand. So tucked away in this top is a lathe. This has been a great way to keep the lathe tucked away and give us some extra tabletop surface to work off of. And as you can see, the lid folds down, which actually works as a great little trough to help with dust collection. But this was actually a happy accident, and for sure is going to make cleanup around the lathe so much easier. Now the drawers are something special. All of the drawers are using the Lock-A-Line drawer slides from Rockler, but this one drawer, which houses all the lathe tools, actually has a two-step drawer where we have storage underneath, but as well a shallow drawer for all of the lathe tools. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I want to talk about this corner because it's potentially going to be where one of the largest changes is in the shop. The plan is to build a small shed attached behind this side of the door so we can move the dust collection outside the shop, but as well add a cyclone separator. I will say when I designed this cabinet, I actually even left room in the back, so we'll actually be able to pipe dust collection through the back of this cabinet to the table saw and the other tools down the way. The tool wall hasn't changed that much over the past year, maybe except for the logo, but the things that we've added to this are just really minor. For me, this is a lot of the awkward stuff that would typically just be dumped in a drawer. The sliding cabinet is still one of my favorite pieces along this wall. It's a great place for me to store a lot of the smaller hand tools that I use quite often. It gives me a great way just to be able to have access to some of the things that I use a lot in the shop. So you'll notice the table saw is not green anymore. I was able to upgrade this in the past year, and it's actually a really cool story. I found an industrial 5 horsepower saw stop on an auction site. So Aaron and I took a day trip to Calgary to pick up this industrial 5 horsepower saw stop. As soon as we got it home, we realized that it was actually two-phase. And if you know anything about electricity, you know that getting two-phase into a residential home is not the easiest. It would have cost us probably an extra $2,000 Canadian to be able to keep that saw. At that point, I actually posted it on Facebook Marketplace and sold it within the hour. The gentleman that purchased the saw knew that it was two-phase and had a solution to be able to use it for himself, so it worked out incredibly well for him. And the icing on the cake is with the transaction of selling that other saw and purchasing this saw brand new, it actually only cost me an extra $500, and this is a professional 3 horsepower. Is it a 3 horsepower? Yeah, it's a 3 horsepower professional. I didn't opt for a lot of bells and whistles on this saw, but the one thing I made sure to get is their fence. Besides saw stuff having the flesh sensing technology, the fence system is absolutely the best I've ever used on any cabinet saw. If you haven't gotten the picture already, I love flip tops. When I got the new saw, I had to rebuild an Outfeed table that fit with this saw. My previous flip top Outfeed table was the same height as my previous saw, so the person who purchased that saw took the old Outfeed table as well. Now the way this works is there's a pin right in the side that you just release, and then it allows the tool to flip up from within the table. One thing I did as well is I actually incorporated power into the mechanism. So both the tools that are in here are powered and ready to go. But when I'm not using the tool, it's really easy just to flip it out underneath the table, and I still have access to this flat Outfeed table. I want to show you a couple of the key design features in this Outfeed table. Besides the flip tops. One of the things that I did is I made sure to incorporate power into the Outfeed table. That way I have the ability to plug in tools or even my phone to charge when I'm working in this space. And then as far as the drawers are concerned, all of them are push to open. But I will say the center drawers are the Rockler Lock-A-Line drawer slides, and they have been working amazing. The bottom drawers are just Amazon basic drawer slides, and I've had nothing but issues with these since I built this flip top table. And at the time I was building the table, I was also experimenting with carbon fiber, which has proven to be a super durable surface, and with the way that I finished it, nothing seems to stick to it. In a small shop like this, space is always at a premium. So putting as much on the walls and into containers as possible just makes organization that much easier. Like I said, there will be a playlist of all the different shop projects that you'll be able to find down below, but this is another real key one that we actually recently released a video on. Last summer I organized all these smaller part containers with all my screws, bolts, everything that I want to get out of drawers and organized into one centralized location. The other thing I want to make sure to do was cover up a lot of the mess that typically I have on these shelves. Now, if you notice here, the rails for my garage door do come right in front of this cabinet. So there was no way that I could do cabinet doors. That's why I did these sliding panel doors instead, which just give me the ability to get at what's in these cabinets, but as well, it still keeps them covered so dust doesn't settle on the tools and everything else that is stored inside here. Now, this is probably one of the more awkward angles in the shop, but right below the cabinet is my 6-inch joiner, which actually has been upgraded with a helical head as well. I do want to point out, when I designed the Outfeed table, I did it at a height where it actually didn't interfere with the joiner. So when I'm doing longer material and I have it rolled out, it doesn't actually hit or bang into the table at all. If anything, it actually helps support it when I'm pushing longer pieces through the joiner. Something that got cleaned up this year was a lot of the scrap wood that we have, and Erin took quite a bit of time to organize this as well as she did. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this corner just because there's not really anything exciting to say other than I have a bandsaw and the current location of the dust collector here. I have said this before, but having a dual drum sander like this is a luxury item. Right now I have the drum setter set up with 100 grit and 120 grit. When we're doing batches of charcuterie boards or cutting boards, it's incredibly helpful to have this. As I said in the video from last year, I wanted to move this onto a mobile cart, and I was actually able to do this pretty easily with just my son's help. The one thing I know I do have to change is actually adding a piece of plywood along the bottom, just because the cart, even though it's at its smallest setting, really is still a little bit too big for this drum sander. On the last video, my motorcycle was not done yet. And I did put out a video about this just a little while ago, and this is my 1972 CB500 Cafe Racer. I built a workbench specifically for working on motorcycles just because I needed that workspace and I wasn't really in a position of always crawling on the ground. This corner has now been dedicated to motorcycle repair and any of the building that we do in the future. I do want to say motorcycles are going to be more of a takeaway on this channel as opposed to the main thing that we do. Every once in a while you will see a video that is about motorcycle and cafe racer builds. In fact, right behind me there is another motorcycle that you'll see a video on probably in the next year or so. The first workbench I built in this shop has now become downgraded to the motorcycle workbench. As you can see by the front of it, it's gotten a lot of, we'll say, love in the past year or so. And this will be one of the next builds I do as far as shop furniture is concerned. There's a couple things I don't like about this particular bench for how I use it. Now, it folds up on both sides and you have access to storage in the middle. However, to get to that storage, you have to crawl underneath the bench, so it doesn't make a ton of sense. Also, I don't need a bench that's that deep. So my thought is to shorten it up and add a shelf along the bottom and add things like the parts washer and other tools on a shelf on the bottom, so I have less stuff, again, sitting on top of counters. In my last shop tour video, I did briefly talk about the plywood storage that's on the rolling cart in the corner, and I've actually taken this out since then and reorganized it. It's pretty easy to get to as long as none of the motorcycles are in the way, but it's a convenient way for me to store my sheet goods. One of the best, and I mean the best, shop upgrades that I made in the past year was buying one of these, and this is just a really easy way to move sheet goods around when you're by yourself. If you have any questions about anything in the shop, let me know. Like I said, all the videos will be on a playlist below, so you can check out all the different builds of all the different pieces of shop furniture that we went over in this video. Haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I'd really appreciate it. It looks like only 40% of you are actually subscribed, so a few more would never hurt, right? And as always, I would always appreciate a thumbs up on this video. It just tells the YouTube gods that this is a video that people like you would appreciate watching. Thanks for coming on the tour. And again, if you have questions, make sure to ask those in the comments below. We'll see you on the next build.